Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to the correct views. Syncing up the cameras isn't working, which is fine because thanks to Google, nothing else is working anyway. My house is Amish and I have almost no internet. Welcome to the correct views. Uh, I've gotten some comments in my comment line lately from some of the dumbest people that I've ever seen. I have no idea how they found me. One group I found me because they were at this ridiculous comment line for Motley Crue that I was at. But the rest of the idiots, I have no idea where they come from. But I'm going to address them because they continually bring up these same ridiculous arguments for things that are firmly rooted in midair, if you will. So I'm going to source everything and going to spend time with everything because somewhere along the way, there is a huge problem in the thinking part of many people's brains, and I'm going to try to fix those here. End of the American Dream, Michael Snyder, the Bilderberg Group, funded by a Nazi and continuing the agenda of the Nazis. There ain't nobody at the Bilderberg Group that wants to kill Jews. That's not what that means. You do realize that it is possible, though I am not, I'm a libertarian, it is possible to be a fascist and not necessarily a racist. Fascism, as practiced by Nazi Germany, was simply more evil than the fascism practiced by non-racist fascists. The point is, we are dealing with an organization that very much wants the same one world government that Adolf Hitler wanted. You just have people like Obama and Putin fighting each other to see who's going to be Hitler this time around. And again, I'm speaking more politically than philosophically. I don't mean that we're going to be opening up concentration camps and throwing gypsies, Jews, and homosexuals into it. Hell, our country practically worships homosexuals. I mean the other side of fascism, the side of fascism that I'm going to get to in this commentary piece. It says, when you want to discover what an organization is really about, it is important to dig it down to the roots. And when you uncover the roots of the Bilderberg Group, you find some very unsettling things. It turns out that the Bilderberg Group has had, Nazi connections since the very beginning, and it continues to advance the agenda of the Nazis to this very day. This year, the Bilderberg Group is meeting on June 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th at the Interrapallen Hotel, Interalpen, which is near the city of Telfs, Austria. The organization has so much power that even several days before the event, police are keeping everyone, including reporters, as far away as 3 times the size of Manhattan. So during World War II, the Nazi effort to unite all of Europe and ultimately the rest of the world through war failed miserably. When the war ended, those that believed in the dream decided that another approach would be necessary. Instead of war, the same people that were Nazis then wanted a united Europe dominated by Germany, who's in charge of the EU today, and it would be achieved through international treaties and diplomacy. In 1957, the European Economic Community was established, and it began with 6 countries: Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and West Germany. Since that time, it has been expanded to 28 nations and has become known as the European Union. Now, again, politically, not philosophically, not talking about gassing Jews, isn't that exactly what Hitler wanted. Is it or is it not? I don't care whether or not you like me or you like my hat. My point is that not what Hitler wanted? It most certainly is. The idea for the common currency that the European uses today, the euro, and there's a link for this proving it here at Prison Planet, was conceived and developed by the Bilderberg Group. So for those of you that don't think that they talk shop and official policy at this Bilderberg Group, which breaks the Logan Act, by the way, read the Logan Act. It says that leaders of our country are not allowed to meet with other leaders behind closed doors for purposes that are not covered at all in the media. So it is illegal. Go look up the Logan Act. The euro was conceived and developed by this group, by the Bilderberg Group. I made a whole movie on this. Christelle and I did. She filmed much of it. Go look it up. Bilderberg, why it mattered to me. It's free on the site. There's even more sources for you in that. The organization has always been at the forefront of European unity, but most people have no idea where it came from. The truth is that the Bilderberg Group first met in 1954, and one of the key founders of the group was Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. Not only was he a founder, but Prince Bernhard actually served as the organization's chairman all the way to 76, so it's kind of recent. That's important because most people don't realize this, but Prince Bernhard actually belonged to the Nazi Party. Now, this is not conjecture. This isn't guess. Even if you love my hat, guess what? It has nothing to do with it. Point is, it's fact. The following is an excerpt from an article that appeared in the Telegraph. That's a newspaper for you comment line idiots. Bernhard, A Secret History, has revealed that the prince was a member of the German Nazi Party until 1934, 3 years before he married Princess Juliana, the future Queen of the Netherlands. That's important for another reason. If he left after 34, it was likely that he left because he wasn't necessarily in favor of gassing Jews and African Americans and gypsies and vile things such as that. But he originally joined due to his love of fascism and the idea of a one world government. That was the draw of a lot of people to the Nazi Party. And a lot of those people came on to start the Bilder Group, which of course is now Bilderberg is a cancerous growth for us all. It says Anjet van der Zijl, Z-I-J-L, you try it, a Dutch historian, has found membership documents in Berlin's Humboldt University that prove that Prince Bernhard, who studied there, had joined Deutsche Studentenschaft, a National Socialist, that would be Nazi, student fraternity, as well as the Nazi NSDAP and its paramilitary wing, which of course was the Sturmabteilung. He left all of the groups on leaving university in December of 34 when he went to work for the German chemical giant IG Farben. It goes on that Prince Bernhard's association with IG Farben also links him to the Nazis. And the following comes from a book entitled The Nazi Hydra in America by Glenn Eden. More sources proving that I was right. The Bilderberg Group, it says, founded by Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, held its first meeting in 1954. The prince, a former officer in the SS, that would be the Nazis, had worked in IG Farben's notorious NW7 group, which served as spies for the Third Reich. So it was like the CIA of Nazis. Bernhard belonged to the Dutch branch of the Knights Templar, Masonry, for those of you that don't know. In 1954, he was appointed to govern the Dutch order. John Foster Dulles was one of the most helpful Americans in setting up the Bilderberg Group. Incidentally, in 1954, Dulles testified in favor of a bill designed to return vested interests such as the GAF to its previous owners. It says they point out that Dulles was instrumental in helping the Bilderberg Group get established in the first place. Him and other Nazi scientists were to come to the United States government in various capacities, and Dulles was so passionate, it was called Operation Paperclip. He was so passionate about bringing Nazis here that it continued even when two presidents tried to shut it down. Dole's CIA Operation Paperclip assimilated Nazi scientists. That means brought people over to the country without vetting whether or not they were scientists because they chose to be in the Nazi party or because they had to be. They didn't vet them. They just brought them over into the American establishment by obscuring their histories and preventing efforts to bring their true stories to light. In other words, they covered for Nazis. The project was led by officers in the United States Army. Although the program officially ended in September of 1947, those officers and others carried out a conspiracy until the mid-1950s that bypassed both law and presidential directive to keep Operation Paperclip going. Neither Presidents Truman nor Eisenhower, and there are links to prove that they both wanted to, were informed that their instructions were ignored. Of course, the godfather of the Bilderberg group, it's the U.S. Secretary of State named Henry Kissinger. He attended the gathering almost every single year, and he will be there once again in 2015. This is a man that's committed to globalization, it says. And he even wrote a book entitled World Order, another source. What hardly anyone knows is that he actually discussed overthrowing the West German government, which was democratic, with a group of disgruntled Nazis in the 1970s. Don't believe me? Look up the article that I just gave you because there's a link to that too. And all the documents to prove it are therein. From that document, a German academic has unearthed evidence showing U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger once discussed a coup with disgruntled Nazis to overthrow the West German government in the 70s. Kissinger and Richard I'm Not a Crook Nixon were aggrieved at the left-leaning government of the day's bourgeoning friendship with the hardline East German government. Kissinger, it says, became the contact man for a secret spy network made up of old Nazis and elite aristocrats aimed at torpedoing the plans formulated by Chancellor Willy Brandt. The guys behind this movement have been in it for a very long time. You want to know how they're alike? All right, let's look at how they're alike. Just like the Nazis, they advocate for highly centralized national governments that are heavily socialized. Just like the Nazis, they are deeply committed to globalization. That is the New World Order. The Nazis sought to establish their empire through war, while these guys seek to do it through diplomacy and negotiation. Just like the Nazis, they believe in strict gun control for the general population. Why do you think the Jews didn't defend themselves? They're in favor of centralized government, controlled education, and removal of organized religion, especially Christianity, from public life. We are seeing all of that right here, are we not? Just like the Nazis, they believe that they are elite of the world, they are anti-Israel, and they believe in using military power to advance their cause, even if it's unnecessary. So there you go, friends. Just like the Nazis, they were deeply committed to eugenics, that is killing people off, and population control. These days, they use language that is more politically correct, but most of them are absolutely convinced the number one problem in the world is overpopulation. So what do? What do all Nazis do? They start killing people. If you look up Bilderberg, Why It Mattered to Me, you'll see that Christelle and I asked Alex Jones what's the most important thing somebody could study that was new to everything that was going on here in the Bilderberg group. And he said to look up exactly what eugenics is. And you know what? I think he was right. I'll give you one more story about the Bilderbergers since they are about to start wreaking havoc on our country this weekend. Exclusive Bilderberg deploys high-tech jamming to shut down communications. You do realize that this is also illegal in Austria, right? Just because it's a different country, they are a free country. You can look up their constitution. This is illegal. Paul Joseph Watson, Prison Planet. The secretive Bilderberg group has deployed a high-tech jamming system to shut down communications around the site of the elite's Confab's luxury hotel in order to strangle media coverage of the event. Now, again, if you looked up my earlier source that I gave you, you will see quite clearly that the Logan Act makes the very notion of doing this illegal. This could, at its very worst, be treasonous. This is a disaster. And now they're working with things like the Funkmusenwagen to shut these things down. Listen to this. After visiting one of the closest spots to the Interalpen Hotel that is still accessible, InfoWars filmed a communications trunk owned by the Federal Ministry for Transport and Technology. Large antennas are also visible on top of the hotel, as well as a giant newly erected mast in the forest near the hotel. InfoWars spoke to an informed local in the immediate vicinity who confirmed that cell phone coverage in the area around the hotel has died since the tower was erected. The individual had also met with police and security near the hotel. Cell phone jammers work by preventing cellular phones from receiving signals from base stations. This is illegal, by the way, unless martial law has been legally set up in Austria, and it has not. The jammers are technically illegal in European Union countries. So they have shut down internet communications near the hotel. The world leaders and power brokers, the movers, the shakers, the bankers of the world, not my opinion, are meeting up in secret in a hotel in the forest, jamming internet communications. And you want to question exactly why I'm feeling it's important to talk about. You, if you're still questioning it, are just closed-minded, and you are part of the problem. Anybody else, I don't care if you like me or not. Share the video and tell everybody you hate me, but let them know what's going on in Bilderberg, because that's what matters. What matters the most is that this information gets out there, because these are the sort of things that affect your future. These are the sort of things that affect the country that you live in. News.yahoo.com. As we move on to more insanity, this notion that Vladimir Putin is like the second coming of God because he is anti-Obama. He's only anti-Obama because he's jockeying for position as the New World Order Hitler, as it were. He is just as corrupt as Obama. He is every bit as tied to the New World Order in separate ways. He's all about controlling energy independence of other countries and making everybody capitulate to the wishes of Russia. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to go ahead and prove that to you here in the next couple of stories. For those of you that think that Putin is not as much of a problem in this as Obama is for interfering in things regarding the Ukraine. UK scrambles jets as Russian planes and ships spotted. Again, news.yahoo.com. This is British fighter jets were scrambled on Wednesday in response to the sighting of 2 Russian military aircraft near UK airspace hours after 3 Russian ships were monitored as they entered the English Channel. Quick reaction alert Typhoon fighter aircraft were launched today after Russian aircraft were identified flying close to UK airspace, said a Ministry of Defense spokesman. So you'll stand up for Russia when Obama encroaches on their border. And yet no word from any of you so-called liberty-minded people when Russia is doing it to everyone else. What is wrong with you? Quick reaction alert Typhoon fighter aircraft were launched today after Russian aircraft were in UK airspace. The planes were launched from Losemouth military base in northern Scotland. Britain's Royal Navy earlier kept track of 3 Russian ships, including a destroyer, after they entered the English Channel, according to the Defense Ministry. Oh, but Russia isn't part of the problem, so they're allowed to retaliate when we do it to them. But let me get this straight. We're not allowed to even sniff our noses at them when they do it to us. Excuse me, dying of thirst. It says it is the latest in a string of similar incidents and comes at a time of tense relations between London and Moscow over the crisis in the Ukraine and the inquiry into the death of Russian spy Alexander Litvinenko. MOD can confirm 3 perfectly peaceful, shouldn't be upset about it at all, Russian ships being monitored at Royal Navy HMS Arteral Through Channel. No exercises seen, the ministry said on its Twitter feed. Russian Udaloy-class destroyer Severomorsk returning from the Mediterranean with tanker and support ship due to leave channel later. Russia's defense ministry said the ships were en route to the northern Atlantic, where they would be taking part in exercises on anti-war and anti-submarine defense. The channel is used frequently and legitimately as a route by Russian warships, but NATO countries are on alert over fears that Moscow could attempt to destabilize countries on Europe's eastern flank that are in its orbit during Soviet times. James Nixie, head of Russia and Eurasia program at think tank Chatham House, said Russia's actions around the UK were designed to send a message. They're trying to show it's got full spectrum capability warfare. It's not a prelude to war, but it's a reminder that Russia likes to remind us of, that it is a power to be reckoned with, not a fading power, which might be closer to the reality. The point is, Russia is provoking the West as much as the West is provoking Russia. And if you immediately side with Putin, then you may as well immediately side with John McCain over Obama. You should just say, well, you know, if McCain would have got in, everything would have been great. No, it wouldn't have been, because they're 2 sides of the same corrupt coin. And I'm telling you, the same thing is happening here with Russia and Obama, Putin and Obama. Don't misconstrue that. It's very important. Independent.co.uk, brought to you by Sticker Junkie. Do me a favor, go to stickerjunkie.com. Let them know you heard about it at The Correct Views. Let them know you want amazing stickers. Give them some idea what you want, and you'll get amazing stickers, like these passing time stickers. Stickerjunkie.com. Russian warships accused of chasing away Swedish vessel to prevent Baltic states from achieving energy independence. Oh, but Sam, they're only the Russians and that wonderful Saint Putin. They're only going after America because America, as you admit, Sam, are often wrong. Okay, well, let's look at this. Russia has been accused of using its warships, again, to deliberately disrupt the construction of undersea power cables that would reduce the energy reliance of Baltic states on Moscow. In other words, Russia wants to piss and moan about things that are done to Russia, and yet they're doing everything they can to force Sweden into buying Russian energy, even if they have to try to use illegal tactics to force them away from being energy independent from Russia. I'm sorry, I thought we were libertarians here. That is not something I support, and that is why I'm telling you that Putin is simply Obama in Russia. Lithuania's foreign ministry said a naval vessel from Russia's northern fleet had entered its waters for the 4th time in around a month and illegally forced a Sweden-owned ship to change course. That would be Sweden, not America. So now you're siding with Russia over Sweden. Why? We all know that the Swedes are starting wars with everyone, right? Except for the fact that they don't. The ship was overseeing the construction of undersea cables that is to stretch 250 miles from Lithuania to Sweden. But they've been chased away from its work in separate incidents on the 29th of March, 10th of April, 24th of April, and the 30th of April. Lithuania has complained each time, and its latest occasion summoned the Russian ambassador in protest. They ought to sink the damn thing. The ministry said it was provided with no explanation, while Lithuanian media reported that a Russian naval commander had called on the vessel to stay away from the area because it had been chosen for military exercises. Yeah, you're going to get a military exercise, all right. You're lucky Sweden didn't sink your boat to the bottom of the ocean, you bastards. It said, for the time being, the cable isn't covered with sand, and we have a special ship patrolling at the site to warn other vessels not to damage it with their nets or anchors. Foreign Minister Linas Linkevičius, Linkevicius, told Lithuania's national radio. The ship has repeatedly been chased away by Russian military vessels. Says Sweden's foreign ministry said it backed Lithuania over the unacceptable behavior of its naval, the Financial Times reported, and has raised the issue with Russia. Oh, but Putin is such a kind man. He just wants peace. There is no chance that he's trying to intimidate his neighbors or start the Cold War again or rebuild the Soviet Union. We can trust Putin because he's ex-KGB. My ass. And last on this topic, Zero Hedge, another source. NATO general warns Putin is a dangerous gambler willing to use nuclear weapons. Now, let's face it. There isn't much you can say about Obama that's good. He has made our economy even worse than the economy he inherited. He has stepped up spying in ways that even George Bush didn't do. He's destroyed healthcare and insurance. He has turned on printing presses to print money all willy-nilly and made central banks the god of the land, unfortunately. But you know what he hasn't threatened to do? He hasn't threatened to nuke anybody. Hot on the heels of George Soros' warnings that we stand on the verge of World War III, there's links all over this article. Please do not tell me that I don't give you links. Go to Zero Hedge and look it up. Demanding Washington back off its anti-UN pressure, it appears the good guys are fighting back with their own good cop, bad cop propaganda. As Sputnik News reports, General Hans Lothar de Mroz, a NATO commander for the Brunsum Allied Joint Force Command, said in an interview with German magazine Focus Online that Russian President, the one you guys for some reason worship, Vladimir Putin, is a tough-minded, forward-thinking politician. Let's not remember what was Obama's saying? Forward. Wasn't that his slogan? Forward. Putin is a tough-minded, forward-thinking politician who is capable of foreseeing situations, but also regards him as a dangerous gambler who is willing to use nuclear weapons against NATO troops. Bilderberg. That's the Hitler Youth song. Don't listen to it. It's stuck in your head. Soros previously noted, another link, unless the U.S. makes major concessions and allows China's currency to join the IMF's basket of currencies, there is a real danger China will align itself with Russia politically and militarily, and then the threat of world war becomes real. Well, he's not trying to rebuild the Soviet Union in Russia. Well, he sure is talking to communist China now, isn't he? NATO has decided to make it clear just who the bad guys are in any equation of global thermonuclear war, as Sputnik News reports. General Hans Lothar de Mroz, commander of Allied Force, it's in the Netherlands, has revealed what NATO thinks of Russian President Putin. The general, however, added Putin is a gambler and he's dangerous. He's also emphasized that neither NATO nor he personally consider Russia an enemy. At the worst, the country is seen as a potential threat. He stressed that no one in the alliance is interested in waging war. Their purpose, rather, is to defend, he said, but President Putin is aware of that and that he allows the general to sleep well. The general is, however, concerned that President Putin might be willing to use nuclear weapons against NATO troops. That would be the troops of the free world, your sons and daughters. That is who you're rooting for to get nuked when you support Putin. The full interview via Focus Online, and Google Translate is available for this, it says, although I hope it works better than the Hangout. NATO General Hans Lothar de Mroz of the new Rapid Reaction Force and the threat of Russia. General, we are not already at war with Russia, it asks, perhaps a propaganda war. The Russian propaganda machine is running the axe. We will reply to the West on the truth quickly, and we gloss over anything. It may there be exceptions, but in its principle, however, it is an old Russian tradition. Matters only not admitted then to comment in a different light, and finally to make a U-turn. Let's take the example of Crimea. It says, it was said at the beginning, we are not, then it was. Yes, there was Russian soldiers, but now they're on vacation. Soldier on vacation with equipment, no less. So don't give me how honest and truthful Putin has been. All soldiers take their equipment on vacation. They just happen to be there. So should the West respond with counter propaganda? Says we must not be primarily lulled. I can understand the concern of our Baltic friends who warn repeatedly. Warning, not all of Russia is a scam, but we have to be straight and honest. Go our way. Let the differences quickly be made, and quietly we stick to the truth. How is the Russian military presence in and around the Ukrainian troubled region? The Russian armed forces are permanently very active since the beginning of the Ukraine crisis in the air. We have over 300 airspace violations or fast injury. 300 violations from the peaceful Putin. Russian territory and location nearby Ukraine, regiments, classic combat units. So yeah, this is what your wonderful Vladimir Putin is doing. And it says, we consider this issue with great concern. The Russians maintain the tactical use of nuclear weapons in the battle for possible forms of warfare. Friends, I don't know what else to tell you, unless you would like to see the world with blinders on. I don't know how you simply can't ascertain exactly what it is that Putin's doing here. Guys, I've got 2 stories left for you, brought to you by Mike McLaughlin. Go to facebook.com, look up Mike McLaughlin, MikeMcLaughlin. Let him know you heard about him from the Correct Views. Short stories, all kinds of poetry, political rants. He's one of us, friends. Go check it out. Independent.cou.uk. This is for my ISIS deniers, as I do my addressing the haters show. ISIS's dirty bomb. Jihadists have seized enough radioactive material to build their first WMD. Now, there are 2 things I want to address here. First of all, I'm well aware that America has foolishly and irresponsibly funded the groups that are now ISIS, who are now terrorizing the entire free world. However, we did not fund them to turn on us. We funded them to help us defeat our enemies. I'm not saying we should have done it, but that is not an excuse for them to do what they are doing with the funding that we gave them. For instance, if I give my neighbor $2,000 and he uses it to buy heroin and shoots up and dies, that is not what I gave him the $2,000 for. And I am not responsible for his death. We needed to stay out of it. And again, my voting record is almost entirely libertarian. There have been a few instances where I have voted for somebody who was willing to go to the battlefield, and I ended up regretting it. I don't think we need to be involved in these things, but it's important to note out that we did not fund them to do what it is that they're doing. That is conspiracy. Second of all, there is this notion that we can build a nuclear power plant in Iran. Well, first of all, doing so is going to lead to the death of more Arabs than 10 armies of Israelites, because there's going to be an earthquake there, just like there was in Fukushima. The same people that predicted the earthquake in Fukushima are actually the same people who are predicting which is going to be one exactly where Iran is building this nuke plant. And this nuke plant, I can talk today. And the fallout for that is going to give cancer and heart disease and illnesses to the member states in the Middle East. And more Middle Easterners are going to die from this power plant melting down, which is going to happen if they build it there. It's mathematical fact. It's the worst place in the world to build a power plant, according to seismologists who know what they're talking about. Fallout's going to kill millions. And even if it didn't, can we not realize here that ISIS is taking over everything? They're taking over hospitals. They're taking over various places where they can get nuclear material. Where can you get nuclear material at? Well, how about the X-ray department? If you don't believe that's a problem, look up nuclear accident Brazil. And I've covered this on the show before. There were some scrappers that were scrapping metal in Brazil, and they took an X-ray machine that had cesium in it. It glowed all pretty like a blue powder, like neon. It glowed in the dark. Kids were putting it on their sandwiches. Couples were having sex by the pretty blue light. The pretty blue light was radioactive cesium, and it led to the death of a number of people, including a little girl that had to be buried in a lead-lined casket. She was so radioactive, and that was through one device being stolen. The whole city protested her being buried there due to the high radioactivity that was in her body. Don't you think if ISIS, and I'm about to comment on, do some reporting on it here in a minute from the independent.co.uk, they have enough to build a nuclear dirty bomb, which pretty much means putting radioactive materials on a bomb and exploding it and letting the materials disperse and sicken and terrorize who it will. Don't you think they're going to overrun this nuke plant? And they're going to use Iranian radionuclides against us, even if Iran does it. I have just given you two remarkable reasons why they cannot go ahead with this. And I am in favor of anybody, including Israel, that wants to stop it from happening. And at no point does that have anything to do with them being Islamic. It has to do with them being crazy. I know there are billions of good Muslims. The trouble is, it's the lunatics that always end up overriding the good Muslims. Says the ISIS militant group has seized enough radioactive material from government facilities to suggest that it has the capacity to build a large and devastating dirty bomb, according to Australian intelligence reports. All right, so why don't we go ahead and make a Palestinian state? And even if they don't bomb Israel, why don't we go ahead and let them be overrun by ISIS? And then, of course, ISIS will bomb Israel from Palestine, and nobody will say it's the fault of Palestine. That's exactly the direction that that's going to go in. It says ISIS declared its ambition to develop develop weapons of mass destruction in the most recent edition of its propaganda rag, Dabiq. And Indian defense officials have previously warned the possibility that militants could acquire a nuclear weapon from Pakistan. Another country threatened to be overrun by ISIS, who is not our enemy, but it won't help us any when their nukes blow up in our cities anyhow. According to the Australian Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, NATO has expressed deep concerns about the materials seized by ISIS from research centers and hospitals that would normally only be available to governments. It says the threat of ISIS's radioactive and biological weapons stockpile was so severe that the Australia Group, a 40-nation bloc dedicated to ending the use of chemical weapons, held a session on the subject at a summit in Perth last week. It says this is really worrying them, Ms. Bishop said in an interview to the Australian. Last week, Mrs. Bishop spoke to the Australia Group meeting about fears that ISIS was weaponizing poisonous gases such as chlorine. And again, they're going to overrun the peaceful Muslims, and they're going to use the peaceful Muslims' weapons against us. Speaking to the Australian, she confirmed that the concerns she was raising stemmed from reports filed by the Australian Department of Defense as well as the Foreign Office. So those of you that want to tell me that ISIS is no threat to its neighbors, you're not right here. The growing concerns about ISIS's development of weapons of mass destruction come at a time when experts fear that the militant group will be more active than ever to mark the start of Ramadan. It's the 1-year anniversary of its ridiculous caliphate. So, Christians are so evil. At Christmas season, us evil, vile Christians, we have people listen to music about God and Jesus. Well, maybe we should become Islamic, where you can celebrate the start of your holiday Ramadan by setting off weapons of mass destruction for your 1-year anniversary. Why doesn't Israel want you as a neighbor? I can't think of a reason. ISIS said it is changing its name to the Islamic State following the first public address by its leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who of course we know has okayed child molestation and the raping and impregnating of 9-year-old girls. Look up Baghdadi rapist. You'll see all you need to know. And friends, of course, as we all know, that brings us to the dumdy of the day as we close the show out. We can't close the show out without a dumdy of the day. And as you would expect, the dumdy of the day does not disappoint, I promise you. Feminist clergy wants Christians to refer to God as she. Of course, Jesus referred to God as his father. That's kind of the big but here. And again, I could care less what it is exactly that you want to worship. As I like to say, you can worship the mighty moon men that live on the moon made out of green cheese if you want to. I really don't care. But if you try to incorporate this feminazi movement into Christianity, then you will in fact be called out as the dumdy of the day, and you'll get music that sounds like this. Feminist clergy with the Church of England wants Christians to refer to God as she, despite Jesus referring to God as his father. Yes, friends, that is how stupid are we actually getting here for the dumdy of the day. Gotta love it. All right. Women in the Church, an activist clergy group best known for pressuring the Anglican Church to accept female bishops, wants to modify the official church liturgy to include female language and imagery to describe God. That would be sort of the point of Mary in some ways. Maybe we should call Mr. Mary. I don't know. Menor Jenner? Mary Jenner? I don't know. In the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen a real resurgence in interest in feminism. We have. And younger people are much more interested in how gender categories shouldn't be about stereotypes. The Reverend Emma Percy, a member of Watch, told The Guardian, "We need to have a language about God that shows God can be expressed in diverse terms. So rather than showing the feminine side of God, rather than telling people that it is Christianity which has actually freed women from the yoke and allowed them to have their rights, which happened after Jesus was saying that all men were created equal. That's where the basis for the Constitution comes from. This wonderful Reverend Percy, who wins the dum-de-dum-de-dum of the day, thinks that we should just change the words that were said in the Bible. Never mind the fact that the words she's changing them to were never said. The chairperson of Watch, Hillary Cotton, said that several clergies were already using female pronouns to refer to God. Well, ain't that just so liberal? The reality is that in many churches up and down the country, something more than the almost default male language about God is already being used. She said, quietly, clergy are just talking about God as if every now and then she's a she. But doesn't that make Jesus sound like a transsexual? For instance, what's stopping the feminists from turning the Holy Trinity into the Mother, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? In the Bible, Jesus referred to God as the Father, so would feminists also change his quotes to say that God is the Mother instead? And of course, that means, what is Mary? The Nicene Creed, the profession of faith at the core of the Church of England, refers to God as the Father Almighty in its very first sentence. It's the first sentence. The question is, when you start revising the core teachings of a denomination to satisfy what is simply current trends, keep in mind Christianity is based in historic fact, does the denomination really then stay the same? Furthermore, the Bible already teaches equality. Galatians 3:28 reads, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. It's excerpts like these which influence the concept that everyone is equal in the eyes of the law, men and women, and that everyone, men and women, have the right to life, liberty, and property. So if feminists really want to teach gender equality, all they have to do is actually read and teach from the Bible instead of modifying It's pronouns. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. to Gangi is signing off, doing political commentary for The Media Speaks. Go to themediaspeaks.com. Look up the work of Kyle, Court, D. Lake, and myself. You will be very happy that you did. You can donate to this show very easily. Go to The Correct Views at hotmail.com, because every penny that you give to me, guess what? It goes towards a better show. And that's what I want to bring you. More shows, better shows more often. Good night, friends. God bless, and thank you so much for listening.